He leaned against the doorway of my office like he owned the oxygen in the room. "Half your 250,000 client bonus is mine," he said, with the smug grin of a man who's never touched a spreadsheet in his life. That was how Derek Montgomery, our freshly minted VP of Business Development, operated. Like the world owed him interest for the effort of existing. I didn't say a word. I just stared at him, mentally noting the overgelled hair, the gleaming cufflinks, and the inflated confidence of someone who once got a trophy for best synergy at a company retreat. Derek didn't wait for me to respond. He strolled away, phone already in his hand, scrolling like he was choosing which luxury golf course he'd burn my money on. I sat frozen in my chair, the same ergonomic prison I'd practically fused with for the last 6 months. 6 months onboarding a legacy client so ancient their ERP system still ran on a Windows XP relic. 6 months of 6 a.m. Zoom calls because Mr. Langford, their CEO, was an early riser. 6 months of babysitting a committee of stakeholders who needed 5 internal alignment meetings just to pick a color palette for their new analytics dashboard. I had earned that bonus, every single penny. And now Derek thought he could just swoop in and claim it. This wasn't even shock. It was that stomach-hollowing recognition. I'd seen this movie before. Different cast, same ending. You grind through the blood and sweat of a project, and then some executive slides in at the last minute to snatch the credit. I'd spent over a decade in the trenches, building client relationships from scratch, surviving tech meltdowns, budget panics, even a CIO going through a messy divorce who insisted on 10 p.m. update calls that were really therapy sessions. But this time was different. This time, I had receipts. Derek didn't know it yet, but every call, every draft, every decision log carried my initials. I was the one who kept the deal breathing through 3 CFO transitions and even one Christmas party fiasco where their lead engineer drunkenly confessed to a data breach. I patched it quietly, efficiently, while Derek was busy glad-handing donors at a golf fundraiser. Now this over-polished mosquito thought he could bleed 50% of my bonus just because he shook a few hands and added himself to one email thread with a "Great job, team." I didn't lash out. That was what he expected. Derek thrived on conflict, something he could escalate and weaponize through HR. I'd learned long ago that in corporate America, rage just makes you look unstable. Paper trails make you bulletproof, so I stayed silent. I didn't complain. I didn't reply when Derek forwarded my project tracker to the CEO with his name slapped on the summary. I just kept working, logging every conversation, timestamping every client approval, saving every file with obsessive precision. Still, the betrayal burned. It wasn't just about the money, though God knows I needed it. I was still paying off my father's hospice bills. My old Honda sat in the driveway with a dead transmission that would cost $3,800 to fix, and my daughter was about to start touring colleges she didn't realize we couldn't afford. That bonus wasn't luxury. It was survival. Derek hadn't just tried to take money. He was trying to steal my dignity, my narrative, my win. But I wasn't about to be a footnote in his highlight reel. If he wanted credit, fine. I'd let him walk straight into it. And when he did, the trap would already be set. It started with a whisper. I was refilling my sad excuse for coffee, burnt, bitter, half resentment, when Jamie from sales leaned in and muttered, "He did the same thing to Pete. Q2 last year. Took a third of his commission and called it strategic oversight." I blinked. "Pete from West Coast Enterprise?" Jamie nodded. "Didn't even fight it. HR said it was aligned with VP support structure, whatever that means." Then more stories trickled in. One offhand comment in the elevator, a Slack message that vanished. Derek had history. Sharon from operations had been steamrolled out of a bonus she'd earned over 9 months. Another contract had a mysterious clause added after signature, funneling incentives into a team pool Derek controlled. Each story hit me like a brick, not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. Derek was a glossy plague, harmless at first glance, deadly if you stood still too long. But this time, I wasn't standing still. I tested the waters with HR. I walked into Rachel's cubicle, our HR generalist, the same one who once tried to organize a mandatory birthday sing-along on Zoom for someone who had literally been laid off the day before. She clicked through tabs on her screen, her nails tapping like she was more interested in her DoorDash order than my future. "If finance processed the request," she said flatly, "it must have had executive sign-off." "From who?" I asked, though I already knew. She shrugged. "Probably Derek. That's standard." So Derek had signed off on his own bonus hijack. And that was good enough for HR. Finance was no better. They gave me their favorite corporate mantra. "We're just following instructions." It was a whole system built on plausible deniability and LaCroix. Fine, if they weren't going to help me, I'd do what I do best. I documented. I pulled every calendar invite, every CRM note, every email chain where I walked the client through deployment stages, risk assessments, budget breakdowns. Threads going back 8 months. Derek's name didn't show up until 3 weeks ago. And even then, it was only as a CC on a midnight status update I sent after my daughter fell asleep on the couch beside me. I downloaded Zoom summaries, transcribed chats, even exported timestamps from our project management tool. The digital footprint was a murder scene. Every single track led back to me. Derek's only contribution was a thumbs-up emoji on one of my updates. His emoji game was stronger than his ethics, but I wasn't done. I dug into our internal portal looking for bonus eligibility criteria. Found the PDF buried under 4 layers of folders named things like Q2 Final Old, Q2 Actual Final, and Q2 Real Final. And there it was. One sentence that stood out like it was carved in stone. Final performance-based disbursements must be directly correlated to project ownership and client continuity. Client continuity. That was my shield. I had been their sole point of contact from kickoff. Derek didn't even know the client's daughter's name. I only knew it because she once joined a call during a power outage to show me her stuffed animal collection. I'd sat through every delay, every procurement dispute, every leadership shuffle where I had to repitch the same integration plan 3 times. Derek hadn't earned a dime. The system was rigged for people like him, but I'd been underestimated for a decade, and I had learned how to weaponize that. I created a private folder, buried it so deep even Sherlock Holmes would need a Sherpa to find it. Labeled it something boring. Quarterly Sync Planning. Inside, I built my timeline. Bullet points. Clinical. No emotion. Just the kind of precision that guts people without raising your voice. On Tuesday morning, Derek sent his victory email. Subject line. Q3. Client win summary plus next steps. It was corporate theater, exclamation points, bolded bullet points, even a cheesy stock photo of a handshake. And buried under all the confetti was a little turd of a paragraph. Grateful to have worked closely with Evelyn on this, especially during Phase 2 implementation. Our collaborative approach ensured the client felt supported from both a strategic and operational lens. Translation. Look at me. I was here the whole time. I didn't reply. That was the game. Derek wanted me to react, something he could twist, escalate. Instead, I took another route. I forwarded my original project tracker to the CEO's executive assistant. Just added a note. Per Q3 wrap-up, attaching client development timeline for records. Let me know if legal needs a full audit trail. And I CC'd legal, not HR. That part mattered. Then I remembered something Derek didn't know. Months earlier, the client's compliance team had asked me to tighten language in the statement of work. They'd had a vendor ghost them years back, and they wanted guarantees. So we'd written in a clause. Primary relationship management may not be reassigned during or immediately following a contractual bonus period without express written consent from the client. Pretty words, but not enforceable, yet. So I reached out quietly to Alan Pierce, the client's legal liaison, a man who wore sweater vests like armor and once told me his favorite show was Columbo because the detective never had to raise his voice. I pitched a small adjustment for Phase 2. All bonus-eligible contract points must be facilitated through the existing primary contact. Any deviation or representation by a non-listed stakeholder voids all performance-based provisions. Alan replied in 10 minutes flat. Makes sense. Send it over. My pulse settled. The puzzle piece clicked into place. Now if Derek even tried to insert himself as co-lead, the clause would nuke the payout. The client's own contract would kill it, and no one could say I hadn't given him rope. Back at the office, Derek was still busy polishing his strategic involvement angle. I overheard him in the hallway telling someone from product, "Yeah, Evelyn handled the admin side, but I closed the confidence gap. Clients respond better when execs step in." I wanted to laugh, but instead I scheduled the next bi-weekly client check-in. The one Derek never bothered to attend unless there were free muffins in the conference room. This time, I added one more person to the invite. Harold Bates, our CEO. I framed it casually. Thought it'd be good for visibility. Client has some high-level feedback. Sure enough, Derek saw the meeting pop up. Within the hour, he replied to the thread. Happy to join as well. Great touch point to align on shared goals. Of course you are, Derek. Step right into it. By the end of the day, he'd sent another email to finance, attaching a memo titled, Joint Account Leadership Incentive Allocation Breakdown. He CC'd 3 other VPs. Not me. Didn't matter. He was grooming a story. Fine. I was writing the ending. Wednesday morning, the air was thick with whatever cologne Derek bathed in. Something that smelled like minty ego mixed with unpaid child support. He strutted past my desk, didn't even look at me, and disappeared into finance like Moses parting the Red Sea of spreadsheets. By noon, it happened. An amended payout request hit payroll. I wasn't copied directly, but my friend Marcy from payroll, the same woman whose jalapeno cornbread changed my life at last year's chili cook-off, forwarded it to me with no subject line, just one sentence. You seeing this? I opened the PDF. Times New Roman Arrogance right there on the page. Project Langford Manufacturing Q3. Primary Evelyn Harper. Co-lead Derek Montgomery. Split 50-50 performance-based payout as agreed verbally during Q3 wrap-up. Verbally. That one word could take down empires. It was Derek's signature move. Say it in a hallway, drop it in a recap email, and suddenly it was company lore. And just like that, half my lifeline was about to be siphoned into his bonus pool like he'd carried this monster across the finish line. I didn't reply. Not to Derek, not to finance, not even to Marcy. Instead, I clicked over to my calendar, opened the Thursday call with Langford Manufacturing. Same 11 a.m. slot, same Zoom link, same invite list we'd used for 6 months. Only this time, I made one small addition. Harold Bates, CEO. As expected, Derek replied within the hour. Looping myself in as well. Great time to highlight cross-functional support for Phase 2. Of course. Walk right into the light. Then, I did something reckless, at least to anyone who didn't know the playbook I'd been building. I picked up the phone. No email, no record, just voice. Alan Pierce answered on the 3rd ring. Evelyn, hey, still good for tomorrow? Yeah, I said. Just wanted to give you a heads up. There's been a little internal confusion on our side about project credit. Credit? Alan sounded cautious. For what? Nothing serious, I said. Just some folks trying to spin this as a joint effort at the finish line. He went quiet. Then, you mean someone's trying to grab your bonus? I laughed dry. Let's just say it's noisier than usual around here. Alan didn't miss a beat. We can clarify that on the call. There it was. That's all I needed. I hung up and leaned back in my chair. The hum of the office was just static now. I watched Derek leave finance, shaking hands with someone like he'd just negotiated world peace. Let him. Every step he took now was downhill. The more he claimed, the deeper the hole. And Thursday's meeting? That wasn't a meeting anymore. That was a spotlight. CEO present, client present, Derek present, and no amount of buzzwords or LinkedIn jargon would save him. All I had to do was hold the shovel. Thursday, 10:57 a.m. I stared at the Zoom link like it was a live wire. I hadn't slept much, not from nerves, but from anticipation. 10 years of being sidelined, 10 years of watching people like Derek hijack wins, and now all of it was funneling into this one call. At 11 a.m. sharp, the familiar chime rang. Alan Pierce, Langford Manufacturing joined. 1 second later, Harold Bates, CEO, Stonebridge Solutions. Then Derek, camera on, teeth gleaming like he'd just polished them for the occasion. His whole face shined, as if LinkedIn had given him a free filter. I clicked join. "Morning," I said, calm as still water. Harold gave a curt nod, already distracted by his second monitor. Alan smiled warmly. "Evelyn, always good to see you." Derek leaned forward, eager, almost panting. "Alan, great to connect again. Looking forward to aligning on phase 2. I ignored him. Instead, I shared my screen. Up popped a clean Word document titled Langford Manufacturing, Q3 Performance Closeout. 3 pages, all bullets, all facts. I scrolled deliberately to the bottom. "Before we move forward," I said, voice flat, clinical, "I just wanted to confirm the payout recipient listed on the performance bonus agreement. Per the updated contract clause, I believe the client is required to verify continuity." Alan's expression didn't change. He leaned back, steepled his fingers. "Can you confirm who that is?" The trap had a voice now, and Derek, God bless his greedy little heart, couldn't resist. "That would be Derek Montgomery and Evelyn Harper," he said brightly. "Co-leads for Q3 success delivery." I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. Alan nodded slowly, looked off screen for a moment, probably reading the same document I'd sent last week. Then he came back with a face like stone. "I see. Well," he said, "as per Section 3C of our contract, which you'll find mirrored in the clause we finalized, any bonus redistribution or deviation from the original point of contact without prior approval voids the performance-based incentive." Derek blinked once, twice. "I'm sorry?" His voice pitched higher than usual. Harold finally looked up from his second monitor. Alan continued, cool as ice. "This isn't ambiguous. Evelyn has been our sole interface from the beginning. Her fingerprints are on every deliverable. Any suggestion of dual leadership, especially retroactively, compromises the trust we've built. If Derek is listed as co-lead, the deal is void. Is that your intent?" The silence was suffocating. Derek stammered. "Wait, I think there's been a misunderstanding." Harold turned on his camera fully, eyes sharp now. He didn't say a word, just looked at me. I returned the look with the poise of someone who knew exactly how many receipts were sitting in the shared legal folder. "I've included all original communications, meeting logs, and approval chains," I said evenly. "Nothing was altered. No co-lead was ever listed until last week." Harold clicked something on his screen. His jaw tightened. Derek looked like a kid caught cheating with the test answers taped to his leg. Alan leaned back, still composed. "Let us know how you'd like to proceed. If Evelyn remains the sole contact, we move forward. If not..." He shrugged. "We consider the contract void." And then Alan muted himself. Didn't hang up, just left the silence to rot. Derek croaked. "I didn't mean..." "Let's take this offline," Harold cut in sharply. Then he clicked out. Alan followed. The meeting tiles shrank until it was just Derek and me. He sat there blinking, mouth opening and closing like a fish yanked out of water. I stayed still, said nothing. Finally, he logged off too. I closed my laptop, stood up, and walked to the break room. I made myself the slowest cup of tea anyone has ever brewed in a corporate microwave. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. This wasn't the win. This was the pin pulled from the grenade. Now, I just had to wait for the boom. It hit like a car crash in slow motion. The words had barely left Alan's mouth. "This voids the deal? Is that your intent?" When the atmosphere around Derek cracked. His whole act unraveled in real time. The practiced smile slid off his face. The color drained from his cheeks, leaving him pale except for a blotchy red flush around his neck. Harold didn't move at first. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the claws highlighted on his screen like gravity itself had just gotten heavier. He didn't blink. He didn't rescue Derek. And that's when it clicked for me. Derek was alone. Alan closed his folder slowly, deliberately. "Section 3C, he said in that flat, teacherly tone. "Continuity of relationship. If the designated primary contact is altered, shared, or reassigned during the evaluation period and not approved in writing by both parties, all incentive-based conditions are null and void. We have no record of a co-lead arrangement. Evelyn has been our sole contact. She's the reason this integration didn't implode 3 months ago." Silence. Derek cleared his throat as if about to object, but no words came. Finally, Harold leaned forward, elbows on desk, fingers steepled. "Derek," he said, voice low and sharp, "is there any written record, internal or client-facing, that indicates you were co-lead on this deal prior to your compensation request?" I added value," Derek stammered. "Strategic visibility. That's not what I asked." Dead silence. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. Alan stood, his camera catching the top of his sweater vest before cutting him off. "Let me know when you've sorted yourselves out. As it stands, Langford considers this deal void until proper alignment is reestablished, preferably with someone competent." Then click. He was gone. The line went dead. Harold didn't speak for a long moment. Then very slowly, he turned to Derek. "Get off the call." Derek hesitated, as if disbelief alone could reverse reality. But Harold didn't blink. Derek logged out, and suddenly, it was just me and Harold. 2 tiles, 1 disaster. He rubbed his eyes with both hands. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, not to me but to himself. Then he looked up. "I need a full timeline, start to finish. Names, dates, files." "It's already prepared," I said. "Check your legal folder, titled Continuity Records Langford." He nodded once. No compliment, no apology, just necessity. Then he clicked out too. I sat in the silence that followed. It wasn't just absence. It was extraction. Like the room itself had to suck all the Derek out of it before anyone could breathe again. I closed my laptop, took a slow breath in, held it, let it out. My tea was cold. Still tasted like chamomile and vindication. Minutes later, my iPhone buzzed. Donna from Legal. Subject line, urgent, Langford incident documentation. Message. Please send all materials related to your direct work with Langford account. Timeline, communications, meeting logs, ASAP. I didn't even need to gather anything. I dragged the pristine folder, the one I'd been curating for weeks, and hit send. Attachment. Langford Project Timeline, Final V3, Actual Final This One. Docs. Within the hour, another email landed. From Internal Audit. Priority 1. Subject, Investigation Initiated. Derek Montgomery. Performance Discrepancies. Body. Per CEO Directive, this review is confidential and urgent. All stakeholders are advised not to engage Derek Montgomery until further notice. Then another email, this time from HR. Subject, Personnel Status Update. Derek Montgomery. Body. Effective immediately, Derek Montgomery has been placed on administrative leave pending internal review. All inquiries to be directed to legal. The office went still. No one said a word. People pinged each other in Slack DMs cautiously, like the walls might echo. I walked to the kitchen for a fresh tea bag, something with a name like Tranquil Breath, because irony helps, and passed 3 managers in hushed conversation. They stopped mid-sentence when they saw me, not hostile, not fearful, more like reverent, like they had just watched a mouse take down a hawk. Derek's absence left a vacuum. Meetings he normally hijacked with jargon were suddenly calm, focused. People didn't scramble to protect him. In fact, the more his name came up in Slack, the more receipts came out. Turns out, I wasn't the first. But I might be the last. By Friday morning, the office was buzzing like a hive someone had kicked. Not with noise, no, the opposite. The kind of silence where everyone typed just a little too carefully, where Slack messages were typed, erased, retyped again. Derek's name wasn't spoken out loud anymore. It was whispered, the way people talk about food poisoning, quiet, quick, with a slight wince. The board had smelled blood. Not the kind of blood tied to quarterly numbers or shareholder fluff. No, this was internal threat detection mode. Executives suddenly remembered they were liable for more than yacht club dues and holiday parties. Rumor spread that Harold had to brief the board late Thursday night. Someone leaked the agenda slide titles. Contract breach timeline. Langford revenue forecasts. Null scenario versus reinstatement. Risk of repeat offender pattern, internal safeguards. Translation. How did we let a $4.7 million client walk because Derek couldn't keep his hands out of the bonus jar? By 10 a.m., my calendar pinged. Subject, consultation, Langford recovery strategy. Attendees, CEO, General Counsel, SVP Client Relations, and me. No hello, no preamble. I walked into the glass-walled conference room, clutching a notebook I didn't really need. Harold gestured toward the empty chair like we were continuing a conversation we'd been having for years. "Evelyn," he said, "walk us through how we fix this." I'd never been asked to explain anything at board level before. Normally, I was the one who prepped the slides someone else presented. But now, my bullet points would determine whether or not we salvaged the deal. So I laid it out. Calm, professional, clinical. I explained the original deal structure, the trust we'd built over 6 months, the clause Derek had tried to bypass, and Alan's final statement. Evelyn stays, or the deal doesn't. Silence followed. Then Harold asked the golden question. "Will Langford come back?" "They're open," I said. "If the contract is updated to reflect sole continuity through Phase 2, and if performance bonuses are assigned cleanly going forward." He nodded, like that was exactly what he expected. The SVP scribbled a note. The General Counsel exhaled in relief. "Do it," Harold said. 10 minutes later, I had the follow-up email from legal. Subject, Langford contract, updated engagement terms. Body, attached. Please find the revised agreement. Please review and confirm as sole representative. Attachment, Langford Scope Rev 2, E. Harper only. DocsX. My name, not Derek's. And then came the cherry on top. An email from HR CCing legal, audit, and compliance. Subject, HR, action summary. Derek Montgomery. Body. After internal review, Mr. Montgomery's amended payout request has been reclassified as bad faith misrepresentation. This violation constitutes grounds for immediate contract termination under Clause 14.3b. I read it twice, slowly. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because finally, someone had called it what it was. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. A lie. Derek, the golden retriever in a tailored blazer, had finally pissed on the wrong rug. And this time, someone checked the security footage. The shift was subtle but seismic. Suddenly, Executives who had never remembered my name were looping me into conversations. "Let's run it by Evelyn," became a sentence I heard more than once that week. People knocked before entering my office. Harold even stopped by one afternoon, leaning against the doorframe like a man who'd just come back from battle. "Good work," he said. "Quiet saves don't go unnoticed forever." He meant it as praise. I took it as admission. When the Langford deal was re-signed Monday morning, the client sent me a handwritten note. "No offense, but Derek made us nervous. You made us believe in the deal again. See you in Chicago." I pinned it above my desk. Didn't frame it. Didn't brag. This wasn't vindication with fireworks. This was the quiet click of receipts finally being read aloud. For the first time in years, the office was paying attention. The final nail wasn't the investigation. It wasn't HR's violation notice. It wasn't even the re-signed contract with my name etched into it like a watermark. It was a 6-second audio clip. Alan's voice, calm and dry. "This voids the deal. Is that your intent?" I had pulled it from my personal backup of the Zoom recording. I didn't trust corporate cloud storage any more than I trusted Derek not to microwave fish in the break room. Legal had asked for documentation. I gave them a kill shot. Coupled with Derek's precious PDF payout request, dated, time-stamped, and signed with Times New Roman arrogance, it was over. I didn't even need to show up to the last board review. I just forwarded the files. Subject: Deal Disruption. Evidence Summary. Attachments: Langford Audio.mp3. Payout Request: DeMontgomery.pdf. By the next morning, Harold called me into his office. Derek's name was already gone from the internal org chart, erased like a bad variable in broken code. His office sat dark, desk cleared. Even the obnoxious Hustle Harder poster was stripped from the wall. I don't know if Derek packed it himself or if facilities boxed it with rubber gloves, but either way, he was gone. Sanitized. Harold gestured for me to sit. "Effective immediately," he said. "You're being transitioned into a hybrid leadership role, senior account strategist, with an equity component tied to performance tiers." I blinked. "Equity?" "You earned it," he said simply. "You didn't just save a deal. You exposed a flaw in how we reward contributions. The board noticed." He slid a thin folder across the desk. On the front, in serif font, was my name. Not Eva. Not executive assistant to Derek Montgomery. Just Evelyn Harper. I nodded. Didn't gush. Didn't smile. Just absorbed it like a sponge that had been waiting a decade. An hour later, I was in a rideshare headed to the airport. Chicago trip. Client meet and greet. In person this time. Alan had insisted. Said I deserved a proper dinner for once. At the terminal, I opened my laptop, cleared my backlog, scheduled auto-replies. And then, out of muscle memory, I typed Derek's name into the company directory. It bounced. His email was still technically active, though. I didn't send him anything, but curiosity made me click on his calendar. One line popped up. Currently on extended leave for urgent matters. Contact HR. No return date. No forwarding contact. No inspirational quote in the signature. Just absence. I closed the window and switched my phone to airplane mode. As the plane taxied, I looked out the window at the skyline shrinking beneath me. All those glass towers where people like Derek thrived unchecked for years. Not anymore. My name was on the contract. His was in the archive. Somewhere over Indiana, I let myself smile. Just once. Not because I'd won, but because I didn't have to explain how. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't fought. I'd let him talk. And then, when it mattered, I made the call. The office never said Derek's name out loud again, but they said mine. More than once, I heard "Run It" by Evelyn echo through hallways where I'd once been invisible. Quiet saves don't go unnoticed forever. Corporate revenge doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with receipts. And in the end, that was enough.